Well, I wanted to sort of keep the momentum going by continuing with our commentary on the Gospel of Mark, session 46. We're in the Temple Act. We've said something about it in prior sessions. Last time, a couple of things were pending. I did find a Job site that I had referred to in regards to the what I call the catastrophizing of the tables of the money changers and the seats of the pigeon sellers. The Greek word is rather, unusual in the New Testament. That's where we get the word catastrophe, to overturn, literally. But when you look at it in the Old Testament in Greek, it's often applied to Sodom and Gomorrah. However, it also appears in an interesting passage in Job 12:19, which says, He makes the priests go around barefoot, and he overturns those who are firm or firmly established. And so it's an overturning type passage that's very interesting. I actually have my dissertation copy, with me here. The book that was published by Edwin Mellon Press, very expensive, very limited circulation, as are these YouTube videos. But on page 139, I do speak about certain passages where it does appear in 1 Corinthians 10:5. They were struck down. The reading in 2 Peter 2:6 is less than certain, but in any case does refer to Sodom and Gomorrah, etc. So we have that. And on page 141, I discuss this word skaios. He would allow no one to transport or carry a vessel. Oftentimes they translate anything, but really it should be literally translated vessel, as in blood vessel, or the pharynx, where you get a vasectomy from. The Vulgate, in fact, does translate vas. The King James, I think, following the Vulgate so often, also has vessel. But in any case, it is, I think, a cultic reference, and I did speak about Jesus giving an infarct to the temple, stopping the blood flow, paralyzing the temple activities. So I am repeating some, which I think is useful, and I want to again go back to the text in Mark at some leisurely pace, or I think as leisurely as I think is desirable. And again, I emphasize that only Mark, this is where I became quite aware of the redactional aspects of Bible texts or books. I had been learning quite a bit about what's known as rhetorical criticism in biblical studies in Rome. I had several professors in that line, especially Roland Maynet, Meynet, a Jesuit. And so I was aware of how these texts are sculpted and how hyperlinks are embedded in these texts, so that a citation is not just to be taken in isolation, but is to be looked at in the original context and surrounding text. And then you get hyperlinked, you get a whole world that opens up in that little window that somebody like Mark has opened up or inserted in the text. So that I repeat that the Temple Act is flanked by the Fig Tree episodes, part 1, and then part 2 after the Temple Act, the Fig Newton in reverse, which is the interpretive key to what Jesus has done. And we're going to continue now to further look at this passage. My dissertation, for your information, is on verses 11, verses 15, 16, and 17 of chapter 11 of Mark. Two of those verses are the overturning of tables and money changers is also in Matthew. I said that John has these large animals and he drives out the sellers. So does Luke, only sellers. In Mark, it's a totality, everybody. And then unique to Mark is this: he would not allow anyone to carry a vessel through the temple. So we've covered that. And he was teaching them and saying, it is written that my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, ethnicin. But you have made it, I would think that's an aorist there, sort of, or actually it's a pluperfect, past tense. You have made it into a cave of lestai, which is important to discuss now. Bandits, violent men, not thieves, where you might think a thief is a pickpocket or a thief is an embezzler or a non-violent person. If we're going to look at this word and see exactly what it means, so that Mark has this vessel mention, which is unique to him, and then also you have the quotation, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples, but you have made it a cave of bandits. And I'm just going to double check Matthew to see whether he has faithfully followed Mark. Not that it's that important. Matthew 21, he really, I don't think, does anything like this. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples, but you have turned it into a cave of bandits. Okay, so he does faithfully copy Mark here. But let's look at what Mark, which presumably is the first of the evangelists, has done here. And I almost want to begin with Jeremiah, but let's just do it in order and go to Isaiah 56, which is where my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples, or all nations, rather. And so, although I think in Isaiah, the word is going to be peoples. At the beginning of Isaiah 56, often called by scholars third Isaiah, ending in 66, it's an incredibly inclusive series of passages where in chapter 66, the actual priesthood will be opened to non-Jews, people who haven't even heard of Yahweh. But the beginning of the book has this incredibly inclusive a language which my professor Blenkingsop, whose course on third Isaiah 56 through 66 I took at the Biblicum in Rome, I said that before, calls it prophetic abrogation of Torah. And it has to do with the admission of eunuchs, prohibited by Deuteronomy 23, and the admission of real foreigners, real, not resident aliens, but real foreigners who adhere to Yahweh. Their sacrifices will be acceptable, and I will bring them to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their holocausts and sacrifices will be pleasing on my altar, because my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Oracle of the Lord Yahweh, who gathers the dispersed of Israel. This is very much in line with Jesus and the 12 disciples, representing the ingathering of the 12 tribes, both kingdoms, in the end time. And then the following line says, I will gather more in addition to those already gathered. That's one of those verses you have to kind of maybe add a word or so to translate it correctly. But the gist of it really is that in addition to gathering the dispersed of Israel, others too will be gathered. Very much in line with the themes of third Isaiah and even second Isaiah, because you might recall that in chapter 49 of Isaiah, right smack in second Isaiah, the second servant song, it says that it is a small thing for my servant, that you be my servant, in order to raise the tribes of Jacob and to make return the preserved ones of Israel. I will put you as a light to the Gentiles, so that my salvation reach unto the ends of the earth. And so there you have, I think, a passage where the mission of this mysterious servant is not limited to the tribes of Jacob, Israel, but also to the ends of the earth, very much in line in the far off coastlands and islands, etc., very much in accordance with the second and third Isaiah. And so you have Mark being, I think, the first one. Maybe Jesus said it himself just like that, but certainly they are making the temple here into a house of prayer for all nations, which I think is even just a more explicit upping of the ante, if you will, over simply peoples. And then, of course, the second part is this one that I wanted to get to, which we probably may not finish today, which is the quote from Jeremiah 7:11. If you want to remember that, it's 7:11. And I was saying before, maybe I said it too fast or in passing, and I'm going to repeat things. Jeremiah 7, where we get the den of thieves, you have turned it into a den of thieves or cave of bandits, etc., is, I think, Jeremiah's inaugural speech in 609, precisely against the false sense of security that the temple provides with all its sacrifices. And what Jeremiah does is that he's ordered by Yahweh to stand in the door of the house of Yahweh and proclaim that the people have to improve their conduct, and that if they do this, Yahweh will enable them to stay in this place. This is already an echo of exile and an echo of the destruction of the temple. Do not confide in lying words that repeat, Temple of Yahweh, Temple of Yahweh, Temple of Yahweh is this. Because if you really improve your conduct, if you really do mutual justice, if you don't oppress the resident alien, the orphan, and the widow, and you don't shed innocent blood in this place, nor go after other gods for your own harm, then I will stay with you in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers, from ever until ever. But behold, you trust in lying words that are worth nothing, to rob and kill, commit adultery, swear falsely, give incense to Baal, and follow other gods that you did not know. Very Deuteronomic language and themes. Then you come here and you stand before me in this house called by my name, and you say, we are safe to continue to do all these abominations. Into a cave of bandits has this house called by my name become in your eyes? I have seen it well, says the Yahweh. I've observed this very well, says Yahweh. So that, and then he goes on to what I was saying, and we're going to have to take that up next time. But I want to go on about another minute or two. And then Jeremiah alludes to Shiloh. His priests, his type of priesthood defrocked, banished to Anathoth. It's in the very beginning of the book of Jeremiah. He's one of the priests of Anathoth, where Solomon banished Abiathar, the head of this priestly group, which Jesus mentions by mistake, quote unquote, in the days of the high priest Abiathar. It was really Ahimelech, but Jesus is using the unmentionable. He's mentioning the unmentionable to make a point in the so-called picking grains on the Sabbath in Mark 2, verse 36. And so we're almost at the end here, but I'm giving you a background, which we're going to develop and continue with and explain as thoroughly as we can, of what the background to all this stuff is. And it's heavy. This is the tip of the iceberg, and we have to scuba dive to see what's underneath, what lies beneath. So with that, I'm going to stop so I don't get really close to 20 minutes. And so we'll see you next time, hopefully.